I swear to God, we're cousins. We don't look like cousins, but we're cousins. Yes. So we have been just making ridiculous stuff together since we were little kids. We were like making weird movies together and adventure things, and so we've always been big film fans. He's a bigger literature fan than I don't read much, but yeah, story has been a part of our collaborative nature for a while. It really just added up to like, oh, there's a thing that we, with a small team, can make a big impact on. That was kind of what started it. There's a million new ways into making story fun to play with. The first thing we wanted to do was just make a story game without cutscenes. Like that was the primary objective. Like how can you do a game where people are talking and you can move at the same time? And then Adam, who had been at Telltale right before that, also really ended up driving so much of the dialogue system and how it functioned in Oxenfree.
Yeah, it was definitely a big goal in terms of the conversations, just to make them feel as naturalistic as we could without any real big gaps or pauses, and they have that nice tension of, do I interrupt, when do I talk, do I make a joke, what do I want the tone to be?
The storytelling mechanics should feel like the ability of the player. So it's not like dialogue is right or wrong per se, it's more like it's just an ability and it's like a role-playing aspect to it. So we think there's just a lot to juice in that idea of like dialogue being a power.
We want to give them as much freedom as we can to kind of guide the conversations and guide the goals and kind of express themselves in terms of what they're interested in exploring in the games. But there comes to a point in time where we have to tell you what you need to know and what you have to do. So it can be tough to really get that to come across in a very naturalistic way.
So this game is very modular in terms of how you interact with the story. That was the thing we wanted to evolve from where Oxenfree was. But in this, it's more like, you know, if a cool party is going on over at one location, you're gonna miss out on another one, and we force the player to miss that. There's like large swaths of content that are, you know, choices will also determine where you are and what you're missing, and we want it to feel like a real night out, you know, like when you go out and have the craziest nights out, you don't know where you're gonna end up and how you're gonna get there, and so the story and design is structured in a way that's pretty different.
Lola? Can you get alcohol poisoning in hell?
It's nice it's a comedy this time as opposed to Oxenfree. With this game, it's been a lot more fun to be more open with it and just kind of tell people you're partying in hell. The goal is to just drink and have fun and challenge Satan and meet a bunch of weird demons.
For Afterparty, you know, we're talking about Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure and Beetlejuice and all the Edgar Wright movies and Superbad, and like how can we mash those together and then make it all playable?
It's kind of part of the mythology of hell, where you kind of forget how your life was and who you were as a person in large part. It's kind of like when you're a baby and you don't remember like ages 0 to 4, and then you have your rest of your life. Eternity kind of looks at your life as age 0 to 4, and now that you're dead, your real life begins and you don't really remember. I'm kind of proud of how that kind of bubbles up to the surface and what the players are able to do with it. And I think in Beetlejuice it's a little touched on where they'll have gaps of time missing and they don't really remember who, like when they moved into the house or things. So yeah, and we definitely took a lot from that movie in terms of how they had the bureaucracy of the afterlife, and it felt very relatable in kind of a dreary but fun way.
We have like a hell DMV that processes you when you show up, and you get your own personal demon that comes out of a bunch of choices that you make early on in the game. And so this character emerges. Her name is Sister Mary Wormhorn, and she's this like floating, torturous, weird demon character, kind of like Death in Bill and Ted 2, if you remember that character. Kind of like a frenemy that's testing you and showing you all the bad choices that you've made and mocking you and is ever present. And so it's a way to be a little bit more player facing in a lot of that choice. But the other part of that kind of like forgetting where you came from is really great then from a player perspective too. They don't have to take into account a bunch of history just yet, right? Like this stuff can get surfaced in a way that is, you know, Milo and Lola are learning it with the player at the same time. So it's a bit of, yeah, it's good for the gameplay and it's also interesting for the fiction. It's not just a crazy comedy, which is certainly what it is on the surface. It also is an exploration of friendship and like how hard being a really good friend with somebody it can be. And I think by the end of the game, yeah, players will have explored a lot of those types of themes that they might not be expecting. You know, they might think that there's a little more, like there's a lot going on under the surface in this game.
Pulled from your two relationships?
Yes, cousin life.
Yeah.